when you're dealing with a client, do you want to be involved in their creative process, talking about what their next project should be, or do you want to let them work on that on their own and come back to you?
I tend to sort of take my cues from my clients, really, because people have different wants and needs. As you know, as creative people, I think some people want a lot of input, and some people just want to come to you with something fully formed. I will say that, you know, in the same way that an author, once they've, you know, if they're too close to their work, it's hard to see it really with fresh eyes. I get that way too if I've seen a manuscript too many times. So I try to discourage, you know, some of the clients I have who do want a lot of input, who want to ask me at every stage, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think of this? I try to discourage them from sending manuscripts to me more than a couple of times, because then I just get in the same position where I'm like, I don't know if this is any better or not. And so I would prefer to keep myself a little bit fresh. I would prefer my clients to do more of that nitty gritty work with their critique groups, and then come to me when they think, you know, so a lot of times I do have people who will say, I have these 5 ideas in mind, which ones do you think have the most potential? And I do enjoy, and I think it's productive to give that guidance sometimes, because then you can be putting your effort into the right, or the projects that feel like they have the most potential to sell, you know? And then I want them to go away and do all that work with their critique groups and everything, and then come back to me when they really think they have a polished something. And then I might make some comments and ask them to make some changes and read it again, maybe once, maybe twice. But at that point, I would hope that it would be ready to send out to editors, because at that point, my ability to see it clearly starts to decline. It doesn't always happen that way.
Once you've gone through a manuscript and provided your input editorial, and then you get some joker editor who has different ideas, does that become personal for you at all, or is it just
no, because my role, and this is I think I made a reference earlier to kind of trying to figure out how much editorial input I should or shouldn't have as an editor, and how that's different as an agent, and how that's different from the input that I had as an editor. You know, there was a learning curve when I first started, because I was approaching it with an editorial mindset of like, we need to get in there and decide, is it this word or that word? What I'm doing as an agent is much more developmental and much less technical in terms of edits, because every editor is going to have their own opinion about flow and sentence structure and technical, you know, conventions. Every house has their own house style, and I can't know what all of those things are. So, and that's not my job anyway, to polish it for publication. My job is to help identify any really big issues that I think editors will object to, or that will scare editors off, and work out those broad issues. So things like, is the pace right? Is the opening engaging? Do I believe the main character? You know, is this a convincing kid or not? Did I believe the ending made sense, or was this part a little bit too convenient that this character popped up coincidentally, or, you know, something like that. So I'm looking at really broad developmental, sort of like the big brush strokes, and trying to get those in a shape where any editor who sees the project is going to think, oh, I love this, and my job is manageable. I don't want anyone to read it and think, oh, I love this, but that whole ending just didn't ring true. Next. So yeah, so it's a sort of a different editorial role. So I try not to take people down a rabbit hole of my personal style, I guess would be the right word. Because I know that, because the point is to find an editor. The point is to find an editor who is going to do all that. And so I'm just making sure that there are no glaring errors. There are no big reasons to say no to the project.
There was someone, and this is so embarrassing, I think it was Elizabeth Law, but I'm not 100%, but we'll go ahead and we'll give her credit, who talked about when you submit something to an editor, you want to leave just enough meat on there that there's something for them to do.
For them to do. Yeah, and probably, you know, I bet different editors are in different positions, right? So for some people, yes, they do want to put their mark on it, but also, you know, some editors are also like the editorial director of their department, and they have a lot of administrative duties, and they're hiring people for their departments, and they're, you know, talking to the board about this and that. And that's, you know, that's a huge part of their job. And being able to edit something is like this very small portion of the time that they have during the day. And so they may not be in a position to like overhaul a book. So some, you know, some people, some editors may want to spend their time doing that, but that's not the luxury that they have. So I think editors do want to feel like they're doing something to the work, but also more and more, I think people are overloaded, and they don't always have the time to do that. So a lot of times they're really looking for something pretty fully formed. You know, they don't want to have to go back and do that really fundamental kind of developmental stuff. They want to kind of really get in and just kind of say, oh, okay, this paragraph, let's work on, you know, on a much more technical level than these kind of big, broad ideas. All that broad stuff has to be in place really before they're going to be able to convince their acquisitions teams to take a project on anyway. You know, I think when a book goes to acquisitions, most of the time for most companies, that means a big room full of editors, but also like publicists and marketing people and salespeople and accounts people, and they don't all have an editorial eye. And so if a book isn't reading right to the people whose job who have other jobs besides analyzing the text, it can fail to make it past the committee. So you want to make sure that the shape of the book is in place before it gets to that stage, which is another reason that I think a lot of editors these days will ask for pre-acquisitions editorial work. That happens pretty often. I find that editors will say, oh, I really like this, but I have some comments before I can show it to my team. And then of course you don't know if that's going to result in an offer or not, but you kind of, my policy is to follow every lead to its natural conclusion.
Well, theoretically, not theoretically, in practice, I imagine one of the reasons an editor might want to prioritize a submission from Stephanie Fretwell-Hill is because they know that you've already gone through with your years of editorial experience. You've already done at least the basics. You're not going to send them something that's not indeed publishable and not ideally suited for them, right?
Right, and that's, you know, that is a big part of what any agent really has to do over the course of many years, I guess, is to develop, you develop a rapport with those editors who know that if you're sending them something, it's going to be of a particular quality. That's not to say that everything that comes out of my inbox is perfect, but that, I like to think that a lot of the editors that I work with, when they see my name pop up, they'll think, oh, this is going to be at least worth reading, even if it isn't for me. I'm going to take a look because they trust that I'm going to be sending work of a particular quality, which is one of the reasons that I, as an agent, I can't promise to send out absolutely everything that my clients write. Sometimes people write duds and you have to kind of be like, I'm sorry, but I can't send this out, because it pulls away from that reputation that I feel like I need to build, or that trust that I need to build with editors, that keeps them wanting to receive submissions from me. If I send them a string of not great things, then they're going to think, oh, she's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes I like what she sends and sometimes I'm not sure, and I definitely, when I was an editor, I definitely received things from particular agents where I thought, I don't know what's going on there, but we do not share the same sensibility. And so the opposite would be true. Whenever I would see a particular name pop up, I would think, ugh, no, I don't think I'm going to want this. So, so I definitely always want to be on the other side of that. Like, oh, good, something from Stephanie.
You don't want to jeopardize the integrity of all your clients to humor the whim of one.
Exactly. And ultimately, it's not a good use of anyone's time. If I really deep down in my gut feel that this is not going to sell, it is not worth my time, and it's not worth my client's time for me to pretend like it might. And like I said before, I do only make a commission on what I sell. So if I'm sending work around that I truly in my heart believe is not going to sell, I'm doing that for free. And I have other things I need to do. So, so it's not a great way to operate. And it's hard, you're friendly with your clients and you have a good relationship, and it's hard to disappoint people. Nobody wants to hear you say, I'm not into this. That your client has worked really hard on writing something, and it's uncomfortable to say, I'm sorry, it's just not up to snuff. But sometimes you have to do that.
Well, wasn't that, I would think that would be better to hear that from your agent up front rather than from 1-star reviews on down the road. Or
exactly. Exactly. Or more realistically, just years and years and years of knocking on doors and never ending up with a publication deal.
At which point you can say, well, what did your critique partners say? That they let you send me this?
Right. Yeah, maybe you need a new critique group.